Hey guys, it's Chris. Happy Packvember! I thought we could celebrate by having a look at my Packard Bell Multimedia 601. And this is a PC that I bought recently at a Northern Virginia swap meet for the total price of $10. Now, of course, since then, I've tried to upgrade the memory and ran into some trouble, and it's more than a $10 PC, but we'll talk about that. What I'd also like to do is give a little tour of it. We can talk about all of its powers and features and all that fun stuff, and stickers that are falling off. And we'll talk a little bit about the operating systems on it, and we'll just go from there. So let's get to it. So the first thing you're going to notice about this PC is it's very dirty and in need of a cleanup. Just look at the dirt caked on. It's really something to see. In addition to dirt, there's plenty of dust bunnies to go around, and that's expected for a machine of this age. Something else I wanted to attack though is you can see that these buttons on the front and that 5 1/4 inch bay are in need of a RetroBrite. So here you can see I've pulled them off, and we'll put them in the bin. I love my RetroBrite bin, and we'll check on these sometime later. The next thing I want to try and attack, and will fail to attack, is the sticker you see on the front. I went ahead and used some Gorilla Spray adhesive glue, and in the process the sticker ran a little bit, so I went ahead and touched it up with this Sharpie marker that you see here. However, this solution was not perfect, as we saw from the introduction. But in any event, I think this PC turned out half decent. Not too bad for some elbow grease applied. We'll take it. Let's take a tour of the hardware and talk about the specs of this Pentium 233 system. This system has a Packard Bell 810 motherboard, which we will see the actual board here in a few minutes. And this particular board has an S3 Trio 64V2/DX video chip, the 86C775. Here's a look at the front of the machine in a little more detail. I thought I would take it top to bottom so you can see it. I love the look of the designer tower. It's really nice. Here you can see that nice Multimedia 601 sticker with all the details of the original specs of the machine, as well as a faceless floppy drive, also a power LED, hard drive LED, and a reset and power button, and that nice Packard Bell signage, Multimedia 601. Here's the back of the system. We have our exhaust fan for the power supply, our power input, our modem, which is hiding in the shadows there, sorry about that, our sound card input, an Ethernet card, and all of your I/O at the bottom. Let's get this thing apart so we can have a look at it. We'll undo these 3 screws that you see on the outside here. Yes, this is an oddly shaped machine. Off goes the cover. Here's our first look inside, kind of interesting, and yes, the motherboard is on the bottom of the case. To get to it, we have to pull off this plastic front piece and remove these sleighs or sleds or whatever you want to call them on the right and the left. So 1 screw on each side, we'll get those out. Let's get the first one out. From there, you just basically pull the screw and slide these out. We'll go ahead and remove the peripheral card, starting with this modem that you see here, which is an 8-bit ISA modem. Next, we'll take out the sound card riser. The sound circuitry is actually on the motherboard, so this is just a connector card, if you want to call it that. And you can see it here. Next, we'll pull out this network card that I've put in, a Kingston KNE 120TX, I believe. All right, next, let's pop out this riser card for the ISA and PCI slots. It's 2 screws, and then from there, it just kind of slides out with this special connector you see at the bottom. Here's a closer look at it. Very interesting that 1 slot is marked not for user upgrades. I do wonder what would happen if we put a card in there, but we're not going to find out. Moving along, we'll take the motherboard out. It's simply 4 screws, though I do complicate that. More on that in a minute. We'll remove the power cable and the IDE and floppy, as well as that audio riser cable. Get all that disconnected and the CD-ROM audio cable, so we can find the 2 hidden screws here. And now the motherboard will pop out just like that. However, if you look closely, you'll see that I've actually removed all of the screws for the I/O ports at the bottom because I didn't know better. So I put all those back in. It is not necessary to remove those to take the motherboard out. The more you know. Moving right along, here's the motherboard in all of its glory. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see all of the connectors, that riser card connector, the IDE and floppy connectors, power, that sound card connector on the far right, as well as the processor in the top left, and the 168-pin DIMM slots that you see in the middle of the board. Here's the processor. It's a Pentium MMX 233. A little hard to read the insignia on there, but with the right camera lens, we can see it. Next, I'll remove the hard drive, though to be honest with you, I am too lazy to completely take it apart. It is a Maxtor 10 gigabyte hard drive, nothing special about it. The first upgrade saga that I had with this machine was trying to increase the memory to 64 or 128 megabytes. The Intel VX chipset actually has a limitation. Let's talk about it. When adding DIMMs to a Intel VX based system, you are limited to 2 megabytes per chip. So ultimately, I settled on installing an identical DIMM to what we had in the system, which had HY57V168010 chips on it. And as such, we were able to bring the system up to 64 megabytes. Now, before I figured out this VX limitation, and this is totally on me, I went through a variety of different DIMMs. I did try some other chips that I found as well, and they were more expensive, but they ended up being for a Sun system. Hence that bottom row on the chart saying SMS, I'm pretty sure that stands for Sun Microsystems. That was an expensive mistake, but I do have a friend who can use the chips. Another change I made was to swap out this 24X CD-ROM drive for a different drive. Fully tested, right? That's what we were told. But in any event, I have a working optical now, so that's good. So next, I proceeded to set up the system. The first thing I wanted to do, though, was upgrade the BIOS, since the BIOS that came with the system was limited to 8.4 gigabytes for hard drive capacity. You will notice, though, that the BIOS no longer shows Packard Bell, but that's perfectly fine. This BIOS does the job nicely. With the BIOS update out of the way, let's go ahead and set up Windows for Workgroups 3.11, as well as talk about a Windows 95 installation. Since I am multi-booting operating systems on this particular PC, I'm using my favorite boot manager, Boot at Bare Metal. And if we go into the maintenance operation for this and to the partition work, we can see I've set up a couple partitions, one for DOS and Windows 3.11 for Workgroups, and one for Windows 95. Let's install Windows for Workgroups 3.11. We'll run through the setup process here and do a custom setup. I did rename my old version of Windows installed on this PC, so we will write that back to Windows. And from there, we can copy all the files over and enter the graphical portion of install, where the network card is attempted to be detected. We can put in our full name, and we really don't have to fill in anything else. And we can set up just components for Windows and ignore printers, since I really don't care about that, or applications already installed. From there, we'll just do a full Windows setup as you see here. Windows will proceed to copy files nice and quickly. Even though I did speed this up a little bit, it's still rather fast. Next up, we'll configure the network. So we'll go to Networks and choose Microsoft Windows Network. And we can click OK. And then we can go to Advanced and set up our adapter card as well as drivers or protocols we need. I'm going to choose Unlisted Driver and find some drivers that work with my Kingston K&E 120TX card, which happens to be Realtek based. I'll fumble around here a little bit until I find some NDIS 2 drivers that work. We'll just use the DOS drivers. And we can click through that, and we'll see that we have that all selected and ready to go. From there, I'm going to add TCP IP, and we can use the infamous Microsoft TCP 32B package to do that by navigating accordingly. So there it is, TCP 32B. Click OK, click OK, click OK again, and that installs. We'll set that to be the default protocol, and from there, I accidentally clicked Setup on the adapter card. I wanted to click on the protocol. We can enable DHCP so that our system automatically gets an IP address. And with that, networking is all configured. One other thing I'm going to do though is disable sharing, since that can take up some memory and cause some conflicts. So we'll turn that off and we'll be all set. I don't care about the name, so I just chose the defaults. And from there, we can let Windows modify our startup files, and it will write old versions of our startup files, and we can skip the tutorial and then restart the computer. With the restart out of the way, I have loaded Windows again and gone into File Manager, where I'm going to map a drive to my Raspberry Pi so that we can find our installer for the video card drivers, which I didn't happen to have locally. The driver we're going to use is this S3 Trio video driver that I found on the RetroWeb. So loading Windows Setup, we can go change our system settings, go to Display, and we can go choose Other at the bottom here, and remember our path. I really wish that Windows would allow you to select here. In any event, with that all said and done, we can choose a resolution that's not too much of a nosebleed to read. Restarting Windows, we can see we now have a higher resolution, so we can give ourselves a little bit more screen real estate. Very nice. And we can arrange things just a little bit to make things nice and pretty. I'm not really spending too much time on this, but we'll cascade. There we go. All right, let's go into File Manager and install our sound card drivers. Now, it's best to do this through DOS for these drivers, but that's okay. These are Crystal drivers. We will pick disk 1 and we will choose a setup program. I happen to find these drivers via Vogons. Here's some information there if it's helpful to you. We will proceed with install. You can see these are Magic S23 drivers, which is fine. We will get some prompts about overwriting files because, once again, I already had things installed. I was just basically running through the installer here to demo the installation process. All of our settings are good. We can accept them. We can move forward. Yes, we'll replace files. All is good. And then we get to put in the second disk, so to speak. We do that. All files are modified and we are good to go. With the drivers installed, I'm actually going to edit config.sys and make a few changes. The first one is I prefer the MS-DOS version of HiMemSys, so we will change that. And the second one is you need to add a /O to the audio driver, otherwise it will not work in plug-and-play mode. So next up, we will load up AutoExec-BAT just to have a quick look at that in case you're interested. You can see some changes made by the audio card software, and that's that. So on boot, we can see the audio card is detected, good to go. And from there, we can see that our network card also gets detected, etc., etc. So we are fully configured. Next up, I did consider taking you through the Windows 95 setup process, but it does tend to be a little bit longer. So let me leave you with some hints. I actually made a thread on X, and it's also available on ThreadReader. I'll put a link in the comments. But all of the drivers you need and all the steps and all the nuances are outlined in this particular procedure. So if you're interested, see the link in the comments and have some fun with Windows 95 on a Packard Bell. In any event, that's what I had for you today. Wishing you a very happy Packvember. I'm very happy with how this machine turned out. I couldn't be more pleased. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.